We are back with a Restaurant Expert Roundup. Today, we're talking about secrets from big-time restaurant leaders and also about one idea. We got Arjun. We'll be back in a second. Arjun, welcome back to the show.
Truly a pleasure. Thank you.
So you're out in Houston right now. Last time we talked, you were in Denver, but as you've got that little slice of Kentucky behind you, even though I'm in Kentucky, I've got all the Chicago Jordans behind me. You got Kentucky horse race behind you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do.
So we call ourselves the world's first win big agency because what we feel is winning is fun, but winning big, especially in today's world where the competition is brutal, separates you. And second thing is the world has changed. You really do not need $200, $500 million to win big because look at the companies who are winning big today had hardly any resources yesterday. So think each one of you, opportunities are obscene, don't need all the resources, just need your big heart and jump in.
And you talk about that. I mentioned that yesterday in our company meeting. Is that where we're located? We're miles as the crows fly from the Cincinnati airport. And half of the Cincinnati airport, which is in Northern Kentucky, is now owned and operated by Amazon. They've got an airport they're building within the airport, which I think they're saying 100 flights a day. And we were talking about, whatever it was 15 to 17 years ago when Bezos left New York and went to the West Coast and started it with an idea of selling books online. Now he's got a damn airport in Cincinnati, basically, and global company. But you're right. It takes you no more effort to try and get $1 million than it does to get 10 million or 100 million. And I think a lot of times we think too small. So I liked what you said there, trying to win big.
Absolutely. And the thing I also want to emphasize again is for the first time, all of us have nearly the same opportunity. The barrier to entry is nearly gone. You and I can take our brilliant ideas today and put it online. And if it's actually good, and we're a little lucky, we'll have 1 million followers. There's nothing that stops us. Earlier you couldn't, but now you can.
Yep. No, I spoke last week. David Scott Peters had an event in Las Vegas. And I stood up on stage and I said, David called this device a video camera, that you have the opportunity to easily record stuff for your training for your restaurants. I call it a media company because in 1999, when I sold radio advertising, most of the people I called on in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky market had probably 50 different media outlets that they could pay money to get exposure on. And they had a lot of choices and not enough money. Nowadays, we all have TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, you name it, all over the place, and none of it costs any money. And what you do kind of pay here and there is pennies. And so you're right. The opportunity is big time. And today I want to talk about some of those big time ideas.
Can I interrupt you? Because you said something which people must not miss. Most of us miss the big idea.
Yeah.
We all look at this phone and call it either a phone or a video cool camera. But your mindset of seeing this to be a media company, everything you have here, I really think that is, if there's one thing, of course, we'll talk about other cool things people take from this conversation, is your mindset, how you see what others do not, is what I call see beyond, is what separates big leaders from the rest of us. So kudos to you thanks for giving me that gift this early in the conversation, and sorry to interrupt you.
No, I appreciate that. Interrupt all day long with gold nuggets like that, especially if you're giving me. No, I'm just kidding. And it's huge. 2-3 weeks ago, I did a TikTok video leaving Best Buy and was throwing a little shade at them because they, after I spent $3,000, they said, oh, I asked for a bag, like, oh, you got to pay for it. And I'd already paid. I wasn't going to pull my credit card back out. I was like, whatever, we leave. But I looked at my marketing director who was with me at the time. I said, watch, I'll shoot a quick 30-second video. It'll go viral. And it did. It's at 1.2 million views on TikTok right now. It's been featured in the New York Post. 90% of the sentiment online is positive. 10% are a bunch of dumbasses telling me I'm a too poor to buy a bag for 11 cents and think they're funny. But it's PR. And I'm like, you couldn't have pulled that off 15 years ago. Now you can. And so it's a gold mine. And there's so much opportunity out there. And I love what you said before we got on the air. You said something and it brought something to my mind. You said ideas are one thing, and then I in my head put, but action trumps all. Because a lot of us have these ideas. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like you said earlier, today is even easier. The barrier to entry is a laptop and actually a phone and maybe, a light and a microphone if you want to get fancy. But realistically, you could use this device and you could start a small business and go out there and pitch your products and make a big impact.
Yeah, totally. And I learned it. Sometimes you need the hard way is when we moved to Houston, the movers were not there. So I was running the business with, of course, amazing affection from my wife and a little dog, Wi-Fi, very important, a folding desk, a folding chair, and my laptop and a light. The light also is very important. That's all I needed. And it really put life in perspective to see that there's no longer, like seriously, if there's another thing I want everybody to take from this conversation is there's no more excuses, okay? You can go as fast as you want. It's your race. We are all running our own race. We don't compete with others. There's no excuses anymore.
Yep. No, I agree there. So on your book and on your website and a lot of places I see your stuff, you talk about some of these secrets that you've learned from the big restaurant leaders. What are one or two things that just top of your mind that are easy takeaways that other people could put in place tomorrow? And you mentioned one offline about one customer a day.
Yeah, and that's the part where, sometimes it's very easy to learn from businesses outside the category, just like you went to Best Buy. I'll just give you an example. I was working with a client of mine, a haircut salon, national chain, and very smart people. And we were in an offsite. They have been talking about loyalty, great ideas. But I thought we were stuck in some kind of a maze, not making any progress because we had tons and tons of ideas. And I'm just doing the math. We have close to $5,000 an hour, not selling anymore. And to me, that just really hurts if we are not moving the business forward. Then this one number hits me. And I'm always trying to find the value of one customer. Okay. In this case, we did the math. One customer, they have, let's say, 100 stores times $35 times 365. Once you do that math, it comes to one customer equal to $1 million a year.
Wow.
And the moment I put that on the board, there was a pause. Then I said, guys, no, before you get too excited, if this number becomes red, which means you lose $1 million. And what I realized was that awareness of the value of one, and that connects to what we were talking earlier. If you and I go to a business and say, we will get you 500 new customers, they may doubt. But if you and I walk in and say, I'll get you one customer per store per day, very doable. Okay. It should be criminal not to do that. Okay. That's how easy it is.
Yep.
And if that turns to be million, I really think that is important. So that's the part with every business everywhere. I really would request you to know the value of one customer. Yeah. Second thing in that process, if you'll see, is for your business, if you look at any restaurant you are in, let's say your light user is worth $200. Medium user is $500 and heavy user is $1,000. Now this is level 2 math for you. Yep. Level 2 math for you is if every week you take one light user to medium, every week, that increases your average per store sales by $300.
Wow.
Every week you take a medium user to heavy, one customer every day. And then you go play golf, okay? $500. I don't play in golf courses for $500, but if I could take one customer up, I could live an amazing life. And that's the power of one, which we are missing. Yeah. And I really think once you see the power of one, it connects to the earlier part of the conversation is winning big is so doable and easy in today's world.
Yeah, and you when you said that, it reminded me when I was at Kiwa Island last, I guess it was September of 2021, speaking for Cisco and the South Carolina Restaurant Show. I've got this number I always throw out is 600 customers. And I say 600 customers is all it takes. And my reason behind the 600 was that when people hire us, one of the things we do within being kind of their marketing department is we help them acquire customer data. How do we get people to give us their name, phone numbers, birthdays, all that good stuff? And underneath that, people have this feeling like I need 10,000 people. I had a guy tell me I need to get 10,000 people on my email and text list by the end of the year. I said, why 10,000? That's what it's going to take to grow. And I said, it's a couple hundred people is what it takes to grow. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I just threw a number. I said, let's just take 600. If I take 600 people and I take 200 brand new customers, 200 people that are frequent customers, and 200 people that are lost customers. I get the new customers that come 6 to 10 times a year. I get the frequent customers that add a visit on here and there and then add on something at their visit they wouldn't have bought normally. And then I get 200 people who used to come back. I said it's 6 figures. And for a one location restaurant, 6 figures can be life-changing. And I just did your math. I looked at it and thought just a rolling 1 year. If a restaurant, because we deal a lot with independent restaurants, 1-2 locations. If a one location independent restaurant that's casual dining, which I'd say the average check's 40, but I ate out with my wife and kid last night and it was like $65. So it's a lot more now. But if they pick up one new customer who comes 6 times a year after that for 1 year, that's 2,190 visits when you calculate those people coming 6 times over the course of the 12 months after they join or become a customer, times $40 is $87,000.
Wow.
And this is the impact there. What you have is that this is where a lot of, I run across a lot of small restaurants that don't realize how significant that number is. Because they'll say, Matt, that's $87,000. That's not a big sale. I do $1 million in sales. I'm like, well, what you're not realizing is that 87 grand, if you do it, is incremental. Yeah. Your rent's already there. Your water's there. Your electric's there. Your manpower's there. All you've got is food costs. And that food cost should put you down close to $60,000. So you just added before taxes, $60,000 in profit to your bottom line.
Yeah, bottom line. Brilliant. Absolutely. And winning is a mindset. Think, if you teach me how to do this, do you think I will stop at 600? No. Once I get it, this is a good addiction to get into where you want to move the business forward. Like once you feel it, this becomes a game. Like, why can't I go to 700, 800? Like this concept of how you showed me and the power of what you showed me was incremental. Yeah. Incremental means lower margin, higher to the percentage goes to the bottom line, which is a big win.
Yep. And that's, I have a conversation this afternoon. We have a restaurant client of ours that's having some struggles with one of their 2 locations. We're having a call later this afternoon. And I looked at their data. And like if I actually on my side can scroll and look at their data, their dashboard, in the past 3 months, they've added 60 people since September 1st. So September, October, November, 3 months in essence. They've added 60 people to their marketing program from inside their 4 walls. And I'm like, 60 people, like you've got 500 people a week coming in. If 60 people in a couple months join, if one person a day joins a marketing program from inside your 4 walls out of 100, that was an accident. Mm-hmm. You've got to find a way to engage the people who are trusting you at the highest level, which is the ones that are walking in and getting a haircut, ones that are walking in and getting and having lunch, and do whatever it takes to get their information. Because like you said, 1 customer a day is easy. You start getting 2, 3, 5, 10, shit, it's on. And then you look at, we're talking about 1 year. You know, I've been eating at Barley, I ate at Buffalo Wings and Rings last night, my wife and son. I've been eating there since 1988. What's my lifetime value? I mean, it's ludicrous.
Yeah. And that's the part where I think the piece which is very important is the second secret I want to push to everyone listening is branding is not what marketing does. That's the promise. Branding is what you deliver to every guest every time. The reason you have been back at that restaurant every time with your family is you trust them, you get what you want and more, and you feel it's your restaurant. And that's the part where at the end, we are in a very unique restaurant business where every guest, every time, sits in front of us and makes a decision about future visits. So that kind of an influence that we have, I really think we really must take it so seriously, because it's a very easy business. As you talked about, the phase one is how do we get people in? But then to remember, branding is to have a very clear idea of what every guest gets every time. And that's it.
Yep. An
Because less
expectation.
guests you lose, less you have to bring in. And that's the whole concept of leaky bucket that we talk about. Is if you have, like, think for a second, if you and I tomorrow start a football team, NFL team, and now we have the best defense, we don't ever let any touchdowns happen. Guess what? We don't need a quarterback. We just need a kicker to kick one goal, and then we sit peacefully, because that's all you need. That's the concept, is how do you keep every guest by that experience? And my request is, if you're listening, you are in a restaurant, ask every person in your team. They all have to be aligned with you on this answer to this question. What does every guest get every time? That's consistency. Relationship is about consistency. That's it.
No, you're exactly right. I remember a friend of mine was telling me a story. He was the brand manager for a national franchise, and a lot of their locations were in airports. And he had told me that this franchise on the West Coast had went rogue and went from Pepsi to Coke. And even though they have a contract at corporate level with Pepsi, and he said he got an inquiry through the website saying, "Hey man, I'm pretty bummed you guys went from Pepsi to Coke. I love getting a Mountain Dew with my sandwich. I've been doing it at airports for the last 10 years. Like, that was this guy's expectation, was a sandwich, these fries, and a Mountain Dew." And he emails the guy back, "We didn't switch to Coke." So he finds a location, goes out there, and the guy had went rogue and switched. But he was trying to explain to that franchisee, he's like, "Hey, you're part of a bigger picture. Like, especially you being an LAX, like, people are coming here, and this customer has an expectation of that your product is the same here, here, and here." And I'll give kudos to Chipotle. I went to their original location in Denver, where you were at, probably 5-6 years ago, and I was kind of underwhelmed the fact that if I'm them, I would have made a bigger deal out of that being the original Chipotle. It's tiny, and there's really nothing except a plaque that says it's the first Chipotle, but it was identical. The product was identical to what I get in Union and what I've gotten in other cities. And that's consistency. And that's also, from a local standpoint, people have to expect the same thing. And that's become harder the last couple of years because there's been so much turnover in the restaurant space that people are, they've not done, in my opinion, a good enough job of branding their restaurant and creating excitement for people wanting to work there. And they've not done enough to keep people. And so now they're just hiring anybody, and that consistency goes down. And that's why customers go elsewhere.
One thing you mentioned, I think, is very important on the Chipotle example, which hit home right away, is they have kept things that do not need to change unchanged. Chipotle has been very successful. Yep. You may like Chipotle, may not. That's totally okay. But we cannot take away from Chipotle the concept that they have been immensely successful, created a totally new category. And this is a big learning for us, is sometimes we change just because we want to make a change. Yeah. We change a website. We forget that I may see my website 15 times a day, yep, but the customer sees it once every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yep. So the very fact you can make a change doesn't mean you change. Sure, yeah. I think that was a huge learning. Thanks for sharing that Chipotle example. Is working on few things, doing it right, is very important for a smaller chain growing up. That's where success is. Consistency comes from doing fewer things right.
No, and you're spot on. Last week, David Scott Peters at his event talked about it. He was talking about different restaurant concepts. He said, "What's a burrito? It's a protein, rice, some salsa, some cheese, and a tortilla shell. What's a taco? Protein, some rice, cheese, lettuce, tomato, salsa." It's all the same exact thing. When you look at Chipotle, I go to restaurants, and he was talking about menus and the complications of it. I go to a restaurant like last night, Wings Rings. Their restaurants, their menu's gigantic. Like, they're trying to be everything to every possible diner. Mm-hmm. And they've got who knows how many freaking items in their walk-in and in dry storage to execute these items. I go to Chipotle and they've got like, I don't know, 10 items. They probably got 5 proteins, a couple rices, a couple beans, and then a handful of hot sauces and cheese and guacamole. But yet there's probably 1,000 different equations you could make something there. And I think a lot of times, like you said, we try and change things because we do it. I loved your freaking example. I had that conversation about 3 weeks ago. Buddy of mine's like, yeah, I'm getting a new website. I'm like, why? Oh, it's stale. I go, dude, your website looks fine. It's great. It's stale to you because you go to it all the time.
Go to it less.
Yeah, your customer, like, focus on something more important. Like, as long as your website is mobile friendly, easy to order from, collects data, is built correctly, is up to date, clean and professional. Stop trying to. The only reason you want to change it is because you want to change it.
Mm-hmm. And the risk is if you change too often, it confuses the customer. Think for a second. You need to get milk and eggs, go to the grocery store. All of a sudden, these bozos have moved the milk and the eggs. Yep. Now you're upset. It's like same thing for me is if I go to my Apple website or Walmart or any website, do not change things. Like once I get used to it, I am getting too old to relearn how to re-navigate a website that I already figured it out. So I really think sometimes the cost of change can be negative. It can have a negative impact too.
I love it. I've loved our conversation today. Is this the best place to find you? ZenMango.com?
Absolutely. Truly a pleasure.
Is there a story behind the name Zen Mango?
Yeah, initially we were Restaurant Marketing Group. And from there, once we were evolving, I was coming up with names like Strategic Marketing Group and everything else. And my daughter was 13 and she had just got 30 under 30 at the age of 13. Wow. In ad age for marketing.
Jeez.
Yeah. And she comes and says, if I give you a new name, will you buy me some pizzas? I'm like, sure. She comes in with Zen Mango. I'm like, get out of here. Like, bad name. She said, no, Dad, listen, Zen, it's like rhymes with our last name, Sen, puts you in a position of superiority, with my egos. I said, oh, I like it. And she says, mango, world's fastest growing fruit, allows you to bring the orange in. And, we just gave her some pizzas. It took me time. And every time people ask, I go back to my daughter. She's now 27. But it's just nostalgic that my daughter gave me this brilliant name. So
I love it. I always like to hear those stories. We have a company that comes in next week, does some training for us. And the guy's company's called Red Rock. And I thought it had some other meaning, but it was pretty unique. His last name is Ruby, and it's a red rock. And, a rock is stable and good meaning behind. I always like to have those stories. So I appreciate you being on. I look forward to having you on again. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.